Welcome to the International Rusty Blackbird Working Group's 2020 Symposium, held in conjunction with the Wildlife Society's 27th Annual Conference. And welcome to this presentation on bird blowflies and rusty blackbirds. Is there a climate change connection? My name is Carol Foss, and I've been involved in rusty blackbird research since 2009. Recognition of the rusty blackbird's population decline dates back to 1999, when our late mentor Russ Greenberg and Sam Droege published a paper in Conservation Biology that summarized Christmas bird count, breeding bird survey, and Quebec checklist data showing a decline of approximately 90% over the previous 3 decades, and provided evidence of a longer-term decline. Breeding bird atlases and state ornithologies have indicated a range retraction to the north and higher elevations. In 2012, a team of scientists analyzed breeding bird survey data for rusty blackbirds and confirmed a mean northward range retraction of approximately 143 kilometers since the 1960s. They also found evidence that suggested a relationship between annual changes in the rusty blackbird breeding distribution and weather patterns associated with the Pacific decadal oscillation. Climate-mediated effects on prey availability through changes in the abundance and phenology of aquatic macroinvertebrates were proposed as possible mechanisms. Today, I'd like to present another potential mechanism for climate-induced range retraction of rusty blackbirds. In 2015, Patty Wohner discovered blood-filled, worm-like creatures attached to a nestling rusty blackbird in our study area, something she had never seen before in 6 years of banding our nestlings. Some internet research identified these organisms as bird blowfly larvae and led us to Dr. Terry Whitworth, my co-author, a world expert on these insects. Bird blowflies belong to the genus Protocalliphora, which occurs throughout the northern hemisphere in both Eurasia and North America. Of the 26 species known here, some are restricted to the east, some to the west, and others have ranges that extend across the continent. Some species specialize on cavity nesters, some on open cup nesters, and some parasitize both. The Protocalliphora life cycle begins in the spring, when females emerge from overwintering sites and locate a bird nest in which to lay their eggs. For at least some species, this requires ambient temperatures of at least 65 degrees Fahrenheit. After hatching, the first instar larvae crawl up out of the nesting material to obtain a blood meal from a nestling. They then return to the nesting material where they grow and shed their skin to become second instars. These instars also obtain a blood meal before returning below and becoming third instars. It's these third instars that can really do damage to a nestling when they occur in numbers, as they're about ½ an inch long and remove a substantial amount of blood. After feeding, the third instars return to the nesting material and pupate, emerging as adults several weeks later. Protocalliphora may affect host health by reducing red blood cell and blood protein levels and by causing inflammation. Low infestations are unlikely to affect the health or survival of the host. Moderate infestations may affect post-fledgling survival, and heavy infestations may even affect nestling survival. A damaging infestation requires that multiple females must emerge from diapause and lay eggs in the same nest during the late incubation or early nestling period, and the third instar larvae must get a blood meal before the nestlings fledge. The only way to confirm bird blowfly parasitism is to dissect used nests and sort out the puparia, which can then be identified to species. Dr. Whitworth has graciously processed all the nests we've been able to collect since 2015. To date, he has identified 2 species in our nests, Protocalliphora shannoni, which occurs across North America in open cup nests in forests, especially at intermediate and canopy levels. And Protocalliphora metallica, another widespread and common species, which infests both open cup and cavity nests at ground level and in the shrub layer. Now that we have 6 years of data, we can begin to see some variation in infestation rates between years. The proportion of collected nests infested has ranged from 17 to 75%, and the maximum number of puparia in a single nest has ranged from 15 to 77. To look at the potential influence of weather on these numbers, I downloaded daily weather summaries for the 6 years for the nearest weather station in Berlin, New Hampshire. This weather station is slightly south of the southern edge of our study area and up to about 430 meters lower in elevation than some of our nest sites. It shows minimum and maximum temperatures and total precipitation for April and May as weather variables that might influence bird blowfly incidence and abundance in rusty blackbird nests. And I looked at their potential effects on proportion of analyzed nests that contain puparia and the maximum number of puparia in a single nest. Since our sample size is still too small for meaningful correlations, I used scatter plots to look for possible relationships. April precipitation appears to have a strong negative relationship with both the proportion of analyzed nests that contain puparia and the maximum number of puparia in a single nest. May precipitation shows a possible negative relationship with the proportion of infested nests, but no relationship with the maximum number of puparia per nest. Minimum April temperature shows no obvious relationship with either bird blowfly metric. Maximum April temperature shows a possible positive relationship with the proportion of infested nests, but no relationship with maximum level of infestation. Minimum May temperature shows an apparent positive relationship with both bird blowfly metrics. Maximum May temperature shows a potential positive relationship with both percent infested nests and maximum infestation level. There are a number of things we need to consider when thinking about the relationships between rusty blackbirds, Protocalliphora, and local weather patterns. To name a few, small temperature differences at critical thresholds can affect adult bird blowfly emergence rates. Spring weather patterns both in and south of the breeding grounds can affect rusty blackbird arrival and clutch initiation dates. Day-to-day temperatures are highly variable in late and early May along the southern fringe of rusty blackbird breeding distribution. Differences in nest initiation dates can produce differences in exposure to bird blowfly infestations. Differences in nest latitude and elevation can produce spatial temperature distances over critical ranges during late April and early May. Differences in fledge dates can affect opportunities for bird blowfly larvae to survive to pupation. April temperatures consistently above freezing but below the threshold for adult Protocalliphora emergence could enable rusty blackbirds to initiate nests earlier and reduce blowfly infestations early in the nesting season. Wet weather in April could both increase food availability for rusty blackbirds and reduce blowfly infestations. In summary, the relationships between Protocalliphora, rusty blackbirds, and local climate are complex. Preliminary data suggests that April precipitation and May temperatures may influence the frequency and intensity of bird blowfly infestations in rusty blackbird nests. Our data suggests that Protocalliphora metallica may require a slightly narrower set of conditions for successful infestation than Protocalliphora shannoni, so determination of temperature thresholds for spring emergence of these two species would be very helpful. A large data set of temperature profiles at individual rusty blackbird nest sites, coupled with clutch initiation and fledge dates and Protocalliphora puparium numbers, will be needed to fully understand these relationships. I'd like to gratefully acknowledge the funding sources, cooperating landowners, and field crews over the past 6 years who have made this work possible. Before closing, I'd like to call your attention to a Rusty Blackbird workshop that the working group will be holding on October 7th and 9th, beginning at noon each day. We enthusiastically invite you to join us for a review of what is currently known about the species' status, threats and limiting factors, information gaps, and priorities for future attention. These discussions will support development of the first range-wide conservation plan for rusty blackbirds. I would also like to announce that we'll be holding live office hours tomorrow, Friday, October 2nd, from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, followed at 4 o'clock by a panel discussion with all the presenters in this symposium. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you tomorrow.